All right, so section 1.6 talks about these things called other types of equations. It basically just has a section that has, different types. The first one we're going to talk about tonight, guys, is rational equations, okay? Rational equations essentially means that we have fractions, okay? So just so we understand, these are fractions, all right? So one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to look for, the way we're going to solve them is we're going to look for the LCD. So step number one, we're going to find the LCD, which is the common denominator here, right? Okay, the easiest way to find the common denominator, and we're going to find it for all the fractions, is number one, think of this as x over 1. Excuse me, that looks like a t. I don't mean it to be a t. There we go, x over 1. So my common denominator is going to be all the denominators that I have. So I'm going to multiply everything by 2 and x minus 2, and I'm going to think of this as a fraction itself over 1. I'm not going to worry about this 1 here because multiplying by 1 doesn't really change much, okay? And we're going to go in slow motion, super, super slow, okay? So I'm going to go 2, and then x minus 2, and then in parentheses 2x plus 5. Okay, that's the first part. Minus, because there's a minus right here. Okay, 2, x minus 2, and 3x. Okay, right there. Okay, and then 2 x minus 2 and x, okay? And then I want you to look at when I multiply the bottoms. I'm multiplying the bottoms by the number 1. So that means that this is going to stay at 2, this is going to stay at x minus 2, and that'll stay a 1, okay? Now that we've done that part, we can start canceling out parts in the top and parts in the bottom. So this 2 and that 2 will cancel out. And I'm just going to leave this x minus 2 and 2x plus 5. I'm just going to leave it here for right now, okay? And then this x minus 2 and that x minus 2 will cancel out. And I'm going to multiply 2 and negative 3x. It's minus 6x, okay? Excuse me. And then over here, put those together. 2x and then x minus 2. All right, so now let's go ahead and start multiplying things out. X times 2x is 2x squared. X times 5, 5x. Negative 2 times 2x is a negative 4x. Negative 2 times 5 is a negative 10. Still have a minus 6x over here. Equals, let's see, 2 times x is 2x squared. And 2x times negative 4 is a negative 4x. Okay. We can start canceling some more stuff out now. Look, I got 2x squareds on both sides, so those will cancel. And I have a minus 4x on both sides, so those will cancel. So now let's start putting together the pieces that we can put together. So let's see, 5x minus 6x is a negative x. Minus 10 equals 0. And then if I move this guy over here, that's just going to give me negative 10 equals x. Okay. So I hope going through that problem, it might have looked a little scary, but then pieces start canceling out and it gets a little bit easier, okay? So let's try the next one. I'm going to do the same exact thing we did before, okay? So I'm going to think of this here as being over 1. And I'm going to multiply everything by my common denominator, which again, in this case, is just going to be x minus 3. Over 1, we're going to go 1, 2, 3. So look, let's put the x that we have there first, and then x minus 3 equals 3, and then x minus 3, and then plus 3 again, and x minus 3, all over. Let's see, remember we're multiplying the bottom by 1. So this will stay in x minus 3. This will also stay in x minus 3. That will stay a 1. So this x minus 3 and that one will cancel, and those will cancel. So I'm going to have an x equals 3 plus 3x minus 9. Okay. So x equals 3x, 3 minus 9, negative 6. So minus 3x here, minus 3x here. Negative 2x equals negative 6. So when I divide everything by negative 2, we come up with positive 3, right? Okay. So I didn't do this earlier, but I want to do it now. Typically in doing rational equations, guys, we need to check our answers, okay? So what do I mean by check my answer? Means I would go back to my original problem, and everywhere I would have the letter x, I would now plug in the number 3, okay? So here's my original problem, x minus 3 equals 3x minus 3 plus 3. Okay, so now if I start plugging in 3 everywhere, I'm going to stop right here because I want you to notice what's going to happen with the bottom. 3 minus 3 on the bottom is going to give me 0. I can't divide by 0. Okay. What this means is that we did all that work and it's a no solution problem, right? So remember when you're a little kid and you went over to your friend's house, right? You're like this. And you walk all the way over there, and then you knock on the door, and there's nobody there. And then you got to walk home like this. You're all sad because there was nobody home. So we did all this work here, guys, for no solution. Okay, let me show you the way we can figure this out without having to do this check every time. Okay, I didn't check the first answer. I'm going to go back, and I'm going to show you. What we're doing is we want to make sure that we do not get no 0 on the bottom. We don't want to get 0 on the bottom, okay? So I'm going to look at the bottom right here. The only part that would possibly make the bottom be 0 is if this bottom piece right here would be 0. Well, the only way that x minus 2 would be 0 was if I ended up, with x equals 2. Well, if you notice, look what we got. We came up with x equals negative 10, so we're okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm always going to look at the bottom part. And I ask myself, what would make the bottom part 0? What minus 2 would give me 0? Well, 2 would. So as long as I don't get 2, I'm okay. Look at the bottom part here. What number do I not want to get? I don't want to get 3. Why? Because 3 minus 3 would give me 0. Look at the number we came up with. We came up with 3, so we say it's a no solution. So now that I know that, I can do the same thing here, okay? First thing I say is, okay, what number don't I want to get? I don't want to get 3. And what number would I have to add to 3? I don't want to get negative 3, okay? So guys, remember, I can factor this bottom part right here into x minus 3 and x plus 3. So the two numbers that I don't want to get are positive or negative 3. As long as I don't get those, we're going to be fine, okay? So let's go ahead and multiply by the common denominator, which is x plus 3 and x minus 3. 1, 2, 3 times. Okay, we're going to go in slow motion. So negative 2, x plus 3, x minus 3. Plus 3, x plus 3, x minus 3. Equals negative 12, x plus 3, x minus 3. Okay. Now in the bottom, I already had an x minus 3 here. Already had an x plus 3 here. And we actually had, excuse me, we had both of them over here. Okay. So now let's start canceling out our common factors. So those are going to cancel there. These are going to cancel here. And both of those will cancel there. Okay. So now let's start multiplying. Negative 2x minus 6 plus 3x minus 9 equals minus 12. So minus 2x and plus 3x is a 1x. Minus 6 and minus 9 is a minus 15. equals negative 12. So when I add 15 to both sides, minus 12 and plus 15 is a 3, which is one of the answers I did not want to get. So again, no solution. Okay. Alrighty. So the next problem here is what we call work problems, guys, okay? Excuse me, work problems. And it says an experienced bricklayer constructs a small wall in 3 hours. The apprentice completes the job in 6 hours. Find how long it takes if they work together. Okay, so let's think about it this way. We got person 1 can do it in 3 hours. Person 2 can do it in 6 hours. Now the question is, how long is it going to take if they work together, right? Okay, so if they're going to work together, think about it this way. This person by themselves can do it in 3 hours. If this person is going to help, it should take less than 3 hours to do that, right? So the answer should be something smaller than 3. Okay, I don't know what it's going to be, but it's going to be smaller than 3. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to make a little table. My table is going to look like this. It's going to have a column for the time. It's going to have a column for the rate. Okay, and we're going to put person 1, person 2, and then together. Okay, so the first person can do this in 3 hours, the second one in 6. Together, we don't know. We're going to call it X. Now the rate, if it takes them 3 hours to paint or to build the wall, I'm sorry, then that means that they're going to build the wall. They'll build 1/3 of the wall in an hour, 2/3 of it in 2 hours, 3/3 of it or the whole wall in 3 hours. Okay. If this one is 6, this is going to be 1/6. Notice what I'm doing. I'm taking the reciprocal here, guys. I'm thinking of this 3 as 3 over 1, and I'm flipping it. Thinking of that 6 as 6 over 1, and I'm flipping it. If I'm thinking of that X as X over 1, again, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to flip it. So we already said that we know it's going to take less than 3 hours. So it wouldn't make sense for me to add those two numbers together, but we can add their rates. 1/3 plus 1/6 equals 1 over X, okay? So now I'm going to get my common denominator. So guys, I'm going to do a little basic math here. 3 is 3, 6 is 2 and 3, X is X. So let me move this thing over a little bit. Here we go. Okay, so what's my LCD going to be? Every factor that I see, I need it. Well, I see the number 3, so I got to write it down. See the number 2, I got to write it down. I see the X, I got to write it down. That's a 6X. That's what we're multiplying everything by 6X. 1, 2, 3. Again, slow motion. 6X times 1, 6X times 1. Oops. Should be an equal sign here. 6X times 1. Okay. The bottoms stay the same. So now, 3 goes into 6 twice, 2X. 6 goes into 6 one time, 1X. Those X's cancel, 6. 3X is equal to 6. Divide both sides by 3. X is equal to 2. 2 hours. What did we say? It was going to take less than 3, and it did. Right? Okay. All right. This next problem, almost identical to the one we just did. Okay. Filling a pool. Let's see. An inlet pipe can fill Blake's pool in 5 hours, and an outlet pool can empty it in 8 hours. Okay. In his haste to surf the internet, Blake left both pipes open. How long did it take to fill the pool? Okay, so we're going to do the same thing we did before. Time rate. Okay, 1, 2. Okay, inlet pipe, outlet pipe. What happens if they're both open together? Okay, it can fill it in 5 hours. It can empty it in 8. How long would it take if they're both open? I don't know. The rate is still going to be the same, 1/5, 1/8, 1x. The only thing that we're going to do different here, guys, is we are now going to subtract. The reason why we're subtracting is these two pipes are not working together. They're actually working against each other. One of them is filling in the water. One of them is draining the water. Okay, that's why I'm subtracting it. Okay, so now I'm going to do my common denominator. Between 5 and 8, the common multiple would be 40. With an x, it would be 40x. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so 40x times 1. 40x times 1 is, sorry, my pen froze. Come on. There we go. 40x times 1 is 40x minus 40x, again, equals 40x. 5, 8, and x. Okay, now we can start to divide. 5 goes into 40, 8x. 8 goes into 40, 5x. The x's cancel, equals 40. So 3x equals 40, so divide both sides by 3. Guys, for these problems, unless it asks you to give you a decimal, you can just leave it like that. If it asks you to give a decimal, then you'll take your calculator and you'll say, what's 40 divided by 3? And you'd write 13.33. Okay. This is like approximately 13.33 hours, right? All right. So, look, let's try the next one. It's almost the same thing as one we just did. With both taps open, Robert can fill his sink in 5 minutes. When it's full, it drains in 10. How long will it take to fill the sink if he forgets to put in the stopper? I don't know. But we can figure it out because we just did one very similar to this, right? Okay. So fill, drain together, right? So it fills up in 5. It drains in 10. We don't know how long it's going to take to fill if they're both working together, right? This is 1/5. This is 1/10. This is 1 over x. Again, this is just like the other one. They're not working in conjunction. They're working against each other, right? So between 5 and 10, 10 with an x. It's going to be my common denominator. So 10x minus 10x equals 10x. 5, 10, and x. Okay. So 5 goes into 10 twice. 10 goes into 10 once. The x's cancel. And we get x equals 10. And this should be in minutes, right? Because the time is in minutes. All right. So the next type of problems we have here are radical equations. Okay. So radical equations is, for the most part, the problems we'll be dealing with, they have square roots. Okay. And so in doing these problems here, what we're going to do is we're going to isolate the radical. We're going to get the square root part by itself. Okay, so I'm going to take this guy right here, and I'm going to move him over. So I'm going to get x equals the square root of 2x plus 3. Since I'm trying to get rid of the square root, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to square both sides. Okay. So this is going to give me x squared equals 2x plus 3 because the square and the square root will cancel each other out. All right. Now, I'm going to take these guys and I'm going to bring them back across because we now have a quadratic equation, okay? So guys, first thing I'm going to try to do, I'm definitely going to try to factor this guy here. And for the most part, I should be able to do a whole lot of factoring, okay? And so I can use my shortcut because the number here is a 1. So I'm going to go like this, x and x, okay? So 1 times negative 3 is negative 3. The numbers that I know that multiply to negative 3 are 1 and 3. Since this guy is negative, that guy will be negative 2. So this is going to be a plus 1 and a minus 3 equals 0. So when we set each part equal to 0, we're going to get x equals negative 1 and x is equal to 3. Now, with radical equations, guys, it is important that I check my answers, okay? So remember, the equation we have is x minus the square root of 2x plus 3 equals 0, okay? So let's check x equals negative 1. Okay, if I put a negative 1 here, negative 1 minus, let me see, 2 times negative 1 plus 3. So negative 1 minus 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. Negative 2 plus 3 is 1. Okay. And that's going to give me negative 1 minus, the square root of 1 is 1. Negative 1 minus 1 is not 0. That answer does not work. Okay. So let's make sure the other one does. Okay. So let's check 3. 3 minus the square root of 2 times 3 plus 3 is supposed to be equal to 0. 3 minus 2 times 3 is 6. 6 plus 3 is 9. The square root of 9 is 3. 3 minus 3 is in fact 0. That one works. Okay. So I do need to check my answers when I'm doing these problems. Okay. For radicals, I do. Okay. Let's try the next one. So remember, we're going to isolate the radical. The radical is already isolated. It's already by itself. We're going to square that side. We're going to square that side. That's going to be the easy part. 3x plus 7. Here, remember what 3x plus 5 squared means. It means I'm going to write down 3x plus 5 and another 3x plus 5, and I'm going to multiply them out. 9x squared plus 15x plus another 15x plus 25, right? Okay. So now let's move the 3x here and the 7 here. So minus 3x and minus 7. Okay. So now we have 0 equals 9x squared. Okay, if I were to add those together, that would give me 30. But 30 minus 3 is 27. So that's minus 27x. 25 minus 7 is 18. Okay. Alrighty. Remember, I can keep going. I'm going to factor out a 9. That's going to give me x squared minus 3x plus 2. Okay. So now I'm really just trying to solve the middle piece. I'm trying to solve 0 equals x squared minus 3x plus 2. Again, I can do this by factoring. So remember, I can use my shortcut. 1 times 2 is 2. The only numbers that I know that multiply to 2 are 1 and 2. If I make them both negative, they'll give me my negative 3. So minus 1 and minus 2. So I come up with x equals 1 and x equals 2. Okay. Again, I want to check my answer. So over here on the side, I'm going to look at my problem. Oops, let me see, what is it? Square root of 3x plus 7 equals 3x plus 5. Okay. Square root of 3x plus 7 equals 3x plus 5. So the two answers that we came up with are 1 and 2. So let's check 1, okay? So we check 1. 3 times 1 is 3. 3 plus 7 is 10. Is that what it was? Yeah, that was it. Okay. If I plug in the number 1, 3 times 1 is 3. 3 plus 5 is 8. That doesn't seem to be working. Hold on, guys. Okay, all right. Sorry, guys. Little boo-boo here. I see where I made a mistake. This should not have been a minus 27. This should have been a plus 27. Okay, so that's going to be a plus. That's going to be a plus. That's going to be a plus. That'll be a plus. So this becomes a minus 1 and a minus 2. Okay, sorry about that, guys. All righty. So now we're going to be checking negative 1 and negative 2. Lo siento, lo siento. Okay. So 3 times negative 1 plus 7 equals 3 times negative 1. Let me see. Here we go. Plus 5. Okay. So this is negative 3 plus 7 is 4. This is negative 3 plus 5 is 2, and the square root of 4 is 2, so that one works. So we're good with negative 1. Okay. Now let's check negative 2. Okay. 3 times negative 2 plus 7 equals 3 times negative 2 plus 5. So 3 times negative 2 is a negative 6. Negative 6 plus 7 is 1, square root of 1. Okay, 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. Negative 6 plus 5 is negative 1. Those are not the same. Okay, the square root of 1 is positive 1, not negative 1. This one does not work. So my only answer here, guys, is x equals negative 1. Okay, sorry about that. I made a small mistake with the wrong sign. I've got to be more careful. All right, let's try the next one. Again, it's still radical equations here, okay? So first thing I'm going to do, I want to get the radical by itself, so I'm going to add 6 to both sides. Okay. Square root of 4x plus 5 equals 2x minus 11 and plus 6 is a minus 5. Okay. So I'm going to do the same thing we did before. We're going to square both sides. Okay. So 4x plus 5 equals, let's see, when I'm squaring this, remember what it is I'm doing. I'm writing it down twice, and I'm just using my FOIL method. So 2x and 2x is 4x squared. 2x times a negative 5 is a negative 10x. This also gives me another 10x, and that gives me a positive 25. Okay, so 4x plus 5 equals 4x squared minus 20x plus 25. Now we can subtract. And we end up with, let's see, move over to the side here because I'm running out of room. 4x squared minus 24x plus 20 equals 0. Okay, so I can factor out a 4. X squared minus 6x plus 5 equals 0. Okay. If I factor the inside, x minus 1 and x minus 5 is equal to 0. So the two answers that I'm coming up with are 1 and 5. Okay. Again, guys, let's check our answers. So I'm going to come back to the original problem. I came up with, what, 1 and 5? Okay. So let's check to see what happens if we plug in 1. So 4 times 1 is 4, plus 5 is 9. The square root of 9 is 3. That would be 3 minus 6. Where we're plugging in the number 1, right? 2 times 1 is 2. 2 minus 11 is negative 9. So that does not look like it works out. Okay. So then my guess is the other one will. What was the other answer? 5. Okay, so let's get rid of that one. Let's double check that 5 works. Okay. Clean this up here. Okay, remember we're plugging in 5. 4 times 5 is 20. 20 plus 5, 25. Square root of 25 is 5 minus 6. 2 times 5 is 10. 10 minus 11, so this is negative 1. This is also negative 1. So the answer that works out here is x is equal to 5. Okay. All right. So guys, we're going to hold off on these for now. Okay. All right, so guys, the next problems we have here are equations that we can say are in quadratic form. So they may not necessarily be quadratic equations, but we can write them as quadratic equations, okay? So I want you to notice it says an equation is in quadratic form if it can be written like this: au squared plus bu plus c. So think about when we did the quadratic equation and we were using the quadratic formula, it was ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Now this is au squared, okay? So what we're going to do is we introduce this new variable called u, okay? U is always going to be the variable for the middle. So u is going to be x squared. Well, if u is x squared, then u squared would be x to the 4th. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite this as 2u to the squared minus 7u plus 5 equals 0. Okay. I can probably factor this thing. I can't use a shortcut because the number in front of the u squared is not a 1, but I can still factor by grouping, right? So 2 times 5 will give me 10. Okay, I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to 10 and add up to a negative 7. What about a negative 2 and a negative 5? So I'm going to rewrite this as 2u squared minus 2u minus 5u plus 5 equals 0. Out of here, I can factor out a 2u, left with u minus 1. Out of here, I can factor out the number negative 5, left with a u minus 1. So notice we did that right. We have a u minus 1 and a 2u minus 5 equals 0. Okay. So now we're going to set each part equal to 0. So we're going to get u equals 1. And if I set this piece equal to 0, I'm going to get u equals 5 over 2, right? Okay, now remember what u is equal to. U is equal to x squared. So now that's telling me that x squared is equal to 1 and x squared is equal to 5 halves, right? Okay. Guys, I'm going to take the square root on both sides for both of them. Okay. So this is going to give me x is equal to plus or minus 1 because the square root of 1 is 1, right? Here, when I take the square root on both sides, I get x is equal to plus or minus the square root of 5 over the square root of 2. Now, there's something we do call rationalizing the denominator. I'm going to show you this because when you write your answers in my math lab, the first thing I would recommend is try to see if you can enter it like that, and lets you do it, great. If not, I'm going to show you what it's going to ask you to do. It's going to ask you to rationalize the denominator. The way we rationalize the denominator is whatever square root you have on the bottom, you're going to multiply it by the bottom and the top. Oops. Pen froze. There we go. Again. So this is giving me the square root of 10. 2 times 2 is 4. But what is the square root of 4? The square root of 4 is 2. Okay. So I want you to notice how many answers we came up with here. Plus or minus 1, that's 2 answers. Plus or minus the square root of 10 over 2, that's another 2 answers, total of 4 answers, right? If you look at our original problem, x to the 4th, 4 answers, okay? Do the same thing here with this next problem, all right? Remember what we said u is going to be equal to. U is always going to be equal to the middle piece. So u is going to be x squared. That means that u squared is x to the 4th. So I'm going to write this as u squared plus 2u minus 15 equals 0. Okay. Now I can factor this and I can use the shortcut because the number in front of my u squared is a 1. Okay, so u and u. Let's see, I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to a negative 15 and add up to a 2. So what about a minus 3 and a plus 5? Okay. equals 0. So when I set each part equal to 0, I'm going to get u equals 3 and u equals -5, right? Now remember, what was u equal to? U was equal to x squared. So this is x squared equals 3 and x squared equals -5. So again, when I take the square root on both sides, I'm going to get plus or minus the square root of 3, right? Because I'm taking the square root on both sides. Same thing over here. And here I'm going to get x is equal to plus or minus, if there's a negative on the inside, I, square root of 5, right? Alrighty. So let's try this next one. Remember we said u is always going to be equal to the middle piece. So u is going to be x plus 1 squared. And so u squared would be x plus 1 to the 4th. Okay. So now let's go ahead and write this out. This is going to be 4u squared minus 13u. I'm going to bring this 9 over. Plus 9 equals 0. Okay. So I bet you we can factor this using grouping. 4 times 9 is 36. Okay. So I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to 36 and give me a -13. What about those same numbers, -4 and -9? Okay. So now I have 4u squared minus 4u. Oops, pen froze again. There we go. There we go. Minus 9u plus 9 equals 0. Out of here, I'm going to factor out a 4u, left with u minus 1. Take out a minus 9, also left with a u minus 1 equals 0. Okay. So u minus 1, 4u minus 9 equals 0. Okay. So now when we set each piece equal to 0, I'm going to come up with u is equal to 1. And let's see, u is equal to 9 over 4, right? What was u equal to? U was equal to x plus 1 squared, okay? So let's move this over to the side, and we'll write it in red. This is x, oops. Sorry, x plus 1 squared equals 1. Okay, so let's take the square root on both sides. Okay, so x plus 1 equals plus or minus 1. Remember what that means. It means x plus 1 equals 1, and x plus 1 equals -1. Okay. So if I go -1 and -1, that's going to give me x equals 0. If I go -1 and -1, that's going to give me x equals -2. Two answers there, right? Okay. Same thing here. X plus 1 squared equals 9 over 4. Take the square root on both sides. X plus 1 equals, I'm going to write two answers, guys. Square root of 9/4 is 3 over 2. One of them is going to be positive. One's going to be negative, okay? So let me keep moving here. Let's go in green. -1. I'm going to write that -1 is 2 over 2. -1 minus 2 over 2, because 2 over 2 is the same thing as 1, right? So 3 over 2 minus 2 over 2, 1/2. Minus 3 over 2 minus 2 over 2, -5/2. Again, I want you to notice, how many answers did we come up with? Came up with 4, right? Because we had that x to the 4th business going on. And that right there, guys, is 1.6.